Hi, this is Kelly Phillips for paperbeadrollers.com. In today's tutorial, I'll teach you how to make this beautiful drop bead paper necklace. I call this bead shape drop beads because the beads look like drops of water. They've got a beautiful rounded shape on the bottom and work up to a cone shape at the top. And then we have these tiny teal round beads hanging down in between the drops as an accent. We are using two different shaped paper strips for this project. All of the drop beads use the same shape. I've just chosen different paper patterns. This strip is 12 inches long. The top 1 inch of the strip is parallel, or both sides are straight, and then one side continues on in a straight line while the other side angles in at the 1 inch mark and then comes to a point at the end. The teal accent beads are made from a 6-inch triangular shaped strip. The width is 1/4 inch and both sides come down and meet in a center point, so nothing fancy here. First, let's make a drop bead. I want the core of my bead to be small because I'm going to put them on head pins. So I'm using the red bead roller from paperbeadrollers.com. It's the 3/16 inch diameter. Slide the paper strip into the slot on the roller with the straight side facing the handle. If you're cutting the strip from paper that is one-sided, be sure you place your cut on the correct side so that the pattern will face out when you roll. You can try rolling these with the paper flipped, but I find this orientation much easier to roll. Begin slowly rolling the paper with your second layer lined up exactly on top of the first. Then begin to slowly roll the strip, leaving a very, very slight bit of paper exposed on each turn. You're creating the rounded bottom of the drop bead here. Don't worry about the top of the bead. The shape of the strip will take care of the top. When you get approximately halfway down the length of your strip, begin rolling your layers in place directly on top of each other until you reach the end of the paper. Then use a bit of glue to secure your bead. Carefully remove the bead from the roller without jostling any of the layers. I like to stick my thumbnail in there and pop it off. Notice that the bottom of my bead doesn't have that perfectly round shape you saw on my finished beads. It's a little bit more cone shaped at this point, but don't worry, that's by design. Now I'm going to glaze the beads, and I use skewers to do that. When I push the bead onto my skewer so that I can glaze it, I'm going to push just hard enough that the bottom layers move into the bead a little bit, and then that beautiful round bottom is formed. Doing it this way serves two purposes. Number one, I feel like I have a little more control of the layer movement, and second, my bead is now securely on the skewer. It's not going to fall off while I'm glazing it. Now, if you're following my necklace design exactly, you'll need to make 7 drop beads in whatever colors and patterns you want for your necklace. I chose 2 solid colors and 2 patterns. Now let's roll the accent beads. Again, the strip is 6 inches long and 1/4 inch wide at the top. It comes to just the normal center point. I'm still using the red bead roller because again, I want a pretty small core size on these. So slide the paper strip into the roller slot and roll the paper directly in the center of the bead. Nothing fancy here. Regular round bead. Glue the end to secure it. Now, if you're following my design exactly, you're going to need 6 of these small accent beads. All right, time for some glaze. I use toothpicks or skewers to hold the beads during glazing, and my preferred glaze is Judikins Diamond Glaze. I like it because it dries in a matter of minutes, it's perfectly clear, and it's very hard and does a great job of protecting the beads from things like skin oils and moisture while you're wearing the jewelry. Just pour a small bit of glaze in your tray. If you use too much, it'll dry out and become goopy before you finish glazing. Carefully cover the beads with glaze, being sure not to accidentally glue the beads to the skewer. I like to stick the skewers into some styrofoam to keep them upright until they dry completely. And I usually put 2 coats of glaze on each bead. Once they're dry, you're ready to make them into a necklace. Here's what you'll need to make the necklace. You'll need 2 kinds of beads. First, the paper beads you just made. Second, some seed beads in a coordinating color. You'll only need 1 seed bead per paper bead. So if you're following my design, that means you'll need 13 seed beads. You'll need some chain for this necklace. I'm using some standard bead landing 8.5mm chain. You can use something fancier if you'd like, and the length of the chain is going to depend on your preference. So mine is 20 inches. You'll need at least 13 1-inch head pins if you're following my design. You'll also need several jump rings. I'll use 5 6mm jump rings and 1 10mm jump ring, which will be the hook for my lobster clasp. You can use whatever type of clasp you like. The tools that you need include 2 sets of pliers, the chain nosed and the curved chain nose. I'll also be using my 1.5mm one-step looper tool. If you don't have a one-step looper, I'll post a link to it below, or you can pull out your round nose pliers and hand make your loops. So I like to use my bead design board so I can line up the beads in the order I want to add them to the necklace. I'm going to start with my bright pink drop bead right in the center with a teal accent bead on either side. Then I'll add a blue multicolor bead on either side of that with more teal accents in between. There, I think this looks wonderful. Now that I have my bead order laid out, I'm going to dump some seed beads into my tray for easy access and also some head pins. Because the cores on paper beads are so large, and because paper is somewhat flexible, even with the hardener on it, I like to use seed beads at the end of my head pins to help ensure that the paper beads don't fall off as they get worn and gory and knocked around a little bit. So I'm going to pick up a seed bead and then put the paper bead on next. Now we're going to loop the head pin. Again, you can do this with your round nose pliers, but I like the consistent look I get using the looper tool. It's also a little bit faster for me. I make sure to place my finger at the end of the head pin and pull the paper bead back so it's very tight against the head. On this piece of jewelry, I don't want a lot of play. I don't want my beads sliding around too much. Now I insert the other end of the head pin into the looper tool, making sure the edge of the paper bead is right up against the metal. And then you just squeeze and the looper tool creates the perfectly shaped loop. This is what it'll look like once you've finished up all of the drop beads. Now let's do the same thing on our accent beads. So follow the same process, seed bead, paper bead. Then press your finger against the end of the head pin, pull the paper bead back tight, and use the looper to create the loop. Now that I have all of my paper beads on head pins, it's time to cut my chain. I want a 20-inch necklace, so I'm going to measure out 19 inches of chain because I know that my clasp will take up about 1 inch. You can use your pliers to open up the chain, or you can just clip it right where you need it. Now that I have a nice length of chain to work with, I'm going to put my clasp on first. I'll put the 10mm jump ring on one end of the chain so that my lobster clasp has something to hook to. Just open the jump ring using your pliers and slide the chain on, and then close it back securely. Now I'll take a 6mm jump ring and attach it to my clasp and the other end of the chain. Close the jump ring securely, and there we go. Time to put on our beads. The looper probably left your loop slightly open, so all we need to do is identify which link we want the bead to go on and hook them up. My bright pink drop bead is going in the center, so we'll do that first. I'm going to find the exact center of my chain. Just slide the loop onto the link of chain and close it with a gentle squeeze from my chain nose pliers. Be careful not to catch the paper bead with the pliers. It's easy to damage the glaze or even flatten the bead a little bit if you squeeze too hard. And there's our first bead. Now we'll put a teal accent bead on either side. Now is the time to decide exactly how much spacing you need between each bead. On this design, I'm leaving 5 empty links between each bead. That way, when the necklace is hanging down in a curve, the beads fall nicely together. If I had them any closer, they would start to lay on top of each other. Now, how do I know that? Because I tested it. I had put them a little closer to each other, tried it on, I think I did 3 or 4 just for a test, and decided it was a little too close. So don't be afraid to experiment a little bit. Also notice that I'm always hooking the loops from the same direction. This helps the beads fall in a similar angle from the chain, kind of like hangers in a closet. They look much more uniform if they're all hanging in the same direction. Next, I'm going to add a pattern bead. And I've decided I want my pattern beads to go on jump rings, just to give them a little bit of motion and create some movement in the piece. So they'll hang a little lower than the other beads. I don't want them all hanging in an exact straight line. I'll hook the loop over the jump ring and give it a squeeze to close it. Then I'll open up the jump ring a bit and hook it onto the correct link. Close it tight, and there you go. I'm going to continue with this exact process until I have all of the beads attached to the chain. As you do this, be very careful of your spacing and make sure that you add the beads consistently. And here's the finished piece. I love how happy this piece looks with the bright teal and pink colors. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe on my YouTube channel for more paper bead making tutorials. And share your creations on my Facebook page. I'll put the link below.